It's the relationship between worship and God that makes us Indians particularly vulnerable to the pull, power and pressure and thraldom of Godmen, as a result of which we elevate them to this status and then let them do what they want, regardless of whether they break the law or not.
Well, I think it is true. I think it is true that there is a certain nature of Hinduism that allows that. But I would also like to point out that, the same nature and the same absence of an institutional codified structure that Rahul Ishwar spoke of also allows, therefore, religion to be practiced and to be experienced at an individual level, where anybody can turn around and get a flock of followers if they believe that there is some wisdom to be received from that individual. So I do think that while at a certain level it does allow for exploitation of a certain kind, but it also allows for religion to be experienced in an everyday sense, the experience of the religion at an individual level, which I think is quite distinctive. So structurally it is fair to say what you've said, but the implications of that are not just about exploitation of gullibility. They also are about the fact that religion can get experienced in everyday life in a fairly distinctive way. I think both need to be acknowledged.
Rahul Ishwar, before I take a break, give me your opinion. To what extent do you agree with the analysis you've heard from Professor Gupta, and to what extent do you passionately disagree?
See, I would definitely agree on a fact that there are a lot of gullibility here. Many people are exploited, but the only humble point I would like to differ with all the media analysis that's happening. Whenever such a thing happens, many people, not this program, but many have a tendency to paint everybody with the same brush. We don't have a word called Godman in India. We only have words like Guru. We only have words like Babas and Sons. Godman is an alien word to us. Godman is a conman. That's a Western import itself. We don't believe in Godman. There are some great gurus, but there are some bad gurus too. So our soul of the debate should lie in how to analysis. When they are raising a power structure, when they are raising economics, we should bring about a solution, a government monitoring of the whole situation. Else, there is every tendency of them to degenerate. That's the reason why we have always suggested that there should be RTI applicable to ashrams, spiritual gurus, mosque or masjid. Right to information should be applied so that we'll be able to monitor their activities and there will be more transparency.
It's a lovely thought. It's a lovely thought. Monitor the activities of your godmen. Have an RTI to ensure that godmen aren't misleading you when they make promises and claim that they've done miracles. You wanted to comment very quickly.
I just want to say one thing, that it is true that religion does believe in, it does sponsor gullibility. In fact, Voltaire had said that the reason why we believe in religion is because you're also gullible people. But the fact in Hindu religion, the important thing is not only that there's no communion, the second thing is that the scriptures in Hinduism actually support bribing of the gods. That is something which is very different and doesn't exist in any other religion.
And because the scriptures support bribing of the gods, and because we get into this mannat relationship, I'll give up X and Y if you do Z, and we give it up first to put pressure on God in the belief he'll then have to follow. Remember, Manu, this makes us susceptible to godmen who play intermediary roles in guarantee.
And one more thing, Manu was very suspicious of what he called wandering ascetics. He liked ascetics who were his pets, but not the wandering ones because you couldn't control them. Those are the real spiritual leaders that I think one of your...
All right. Let's take a break at that point. I think we've had a very comprehensive discussion trying to explain why it is that we elevate godmen to this status where they then defy the law and break the law and we do nothing about it. Is it our politicians who are to blame? Is it us ourselves as people and our culture that is to blame? Or is it in fact our faith, as you explained, and the nature of the relationship in our faith between worship and God? And a special episode trying to understand why we as Indians fall so easily under the thrall of godmen and allow them to defy the law and virtually break it at will. Let's now come to that second critical part of our discussion. What do we need to do as a society and as a people to ensure that godmen observe the law and don't behave as if they're above it? Mr. Marwa, as a former policeman, how do we rein in godmen and stop them behaving in this high-handed way and make it clear to them that the law is for everyone, they are not above it?
Like it is done for anybody else. The moment you realize that violating the law has a price, then it will deter the person for violating the law. But when the person concerned gets the impression and his followers get the impression that there is no cost to violating the law, they get emboldened, and today they are violating in a trivial way, then they start
But
violating.
how do you convince a policeman that the man that he considers a guru, a sant or a swami, when he breaks the law, is no better than you and me and has to be treated like you and me? How does he change that attitude from Santji and Swamiji to saying, you broke the law and I'm going to punish you?
I think you're underestimating the policeman. He's too shrewd a person, average policeman. He draws the distinction between the real and these charlatan. As I used to say, that you call a corrupt SHO and they say, where is he? He says, wo puja kar rahe hain. So, see, so they are very shrewd. The police should be given a clear message. If they see large-scale violation of law being undertaken and being done anywhere, they must enforce the law, otherwise action will be taken against them.
Okay. Mirananda, in an article that you wrote for Frontline in September 2013, you went one critical step further. You said we need a law that prevents any public discourse or advertisement by anyone about their alleged ability to expel evil spirits or to perform miracles that defy all the known laws of physics and biology. Why do you think such a law is essential to rein in and curb Godmen?
Well, I was referring to the anti-superstition bill, which was proposed in Maharashtra by the Bolkar, Narendra the Bolkar, who was shot dead last year. So I was referring, and that bill tries to make a distinction between faith, which it respects, and superstitions. It's a difficult line to, draw sometimes. But certain kind of rituals, certain kind of offers of miracles, of exorcisms, they absolutely, have no place. There is no foundation for those things. And in order to protect people's lives, there can be a provision made to stop these kind of charlatans from. Law can step in, but that I would think would serve a very limited purpose.
Let me stop with that. Let me stop with that, because it's a very interesting point you're making. I want to bring in another voice at that point, because we're running out of time. Santosh Desai, this law that you've heard Mirananda suggest would be a sensible law to have. Critics say this would impinge upon what they call freedom of conscience. It would impinge upon freedom to profess and practice religion. Do those critics have a point, or do you think we need to distinguish between religion on the one hand and what most people consider superstition and black magic on the other? A quick answer.
But the real question is whether it's possible to do so in a meaningful sense. I mean, you can pass a law, but in a meaningful sense, without a genuine intention which precedes it, to actually enforce this and make it meaningful, I suspect is the real challenge. You can conceptually argue about it till the cows come home, but to make this meaningful, I think, is a really difficult task.
Okay, let me build on that point and put it to you, Dipankar Gupta. I suppose what he's suggesting is this, that what you consider superstition, I might consider truth. Sai Baba had followers who took his miracles as reality. There were others who said this was just sleight of hand. Look,
we have enough laws already. We have enough laws to catch all those people who break the law in the name of God or with the saffron.
So you're against this new law?
We have too many laws. We have a proper law already to catch such people who do the wrong thing. Remember, human beings generally are very gullible. But in democracy, you have leaders who are supposed to show the way. They are supposed to be the ones who tell us what secularism is. If the leaders don't practice secularism, nobody can. Remember, Nehru.
So we need rational leaders.
Exactly.
And we'll become
it is because
followers.
The leaders are like us, probably worse than us, that this idea of playing into patron-client relationships gets so much encouragement. Remember, Nehru was against Rajendra Prasad's visit to Somnath Temple. Why? Because he didn't want the leaders to be tainted within religious association.
Let me pick up on that point, Rahul Ishwar, and put it like this. I'll add a certain flavor to it. Many people say that what will actually change our attitude is mass education to inculcate what Nehru famously used to call the scientific temper. But the problem is, some of the most educated people in our country are the ones who are worst enthralled to Godmen. Otherwise, how do you explain the fact that judges, businessmen, politicians, senior policemen, top journalists, top sportsmen all congregate around Godmen? Education clearly doesn't seem to make the difference.
See, normal education is not what we need in this particular case. We need a kind of rational spiritual education. I know it sounds easy, but it is easier said than I agree with that. We need a kind of rational spiritual or philosophical outlook. Remember one golden point, and atheism can never defeat superstition. Only rational spiritualism can defeat superstition. We, like Vivekananda said, the opposite of spirituality is not materialism or atheism. The opposite of spirituality is superstition.
But
we need such rational spiritual leaders. However tough it may be, that's the only way ahead. Because a very sensitive area, grey area, culture can be invoked, belief can be invoked, faith can be invoked. So it's a very tough area. And I strongly believe we need an anti-superstition law. Even though it cannot be invoked, if we have such a new law, it will always create a fear in the minds of charlatans. Whether if we are crossing the Lakshmana Rekha and crossing the limit, we will always be caught.
Right.
So it's a very tough area, and we should be having a clinical precision on this.
Very interesting that on that question of the need for an anti-superstition law, you agree completely with Meera Nanda, but you're saying that the real solution is what you call rational spiritual leaders. Where we find them, I don't know. The problem for many, I'll come back to you in a moment. The problem for many, Renuka Narayan, is that it's almost as if the Indian brain seems to have two separate compartments. One for educated rational thought, the other for faith and blind belief. And these two compartments exist beside each other quite happily without being in contradiction. We seem to be two people in one, which perhaps the West can't quite understand, and the West isn't like that. But we can split ourselves in two and carry on quite happily.
I think that's very well put. You know, the idea of parallel universes. Indira Gandhi was the first leader to publicly embrace her Swamiji, and thereafter, you know, it's just been downhill all the way as far as I can see.
But the truth is, you can't blame Indira for it.
I don't.
Like that.
I'm just putting her in
Is
place.
there a sort of rational versus superstitious schizophrenia?
I think there's a crazy middle ground.
You see, in Western philosophy, Kant and Hegel particularly, both of them say that keep religion and science separate. You bring them together, you're going to kill religion, we'll also kill science. Reason and religion don't follow the same
We
rule.
believe that we can keep both together.
No, they should be kept separate. They should be kept separate, and that's the way to go. Don't bring in rationality with religion, and don't mingle religion with rationality.
So the problem is we try and keep two side by side and get confused.
No, I don't think we get confused. I think in cases like Rampal it happens. As Voltaire said, not to believe in God is absurd. Nobody made anybody say, you know, like they did to Galileo and Copernicus, you know, to recant. So it's possible
but you
to be scientific.
you accept the central point I'm making, that we exist with two compartments in our brains.
Yes, absolutely. I began by saying that it's a very well, you know, valid observation.
That perhaps is the uniqueness of us. That perhaps is our richness, but that perhaps also is our weakness.
Quite right.
That's what makes us, as that phrase going,
we need
Indian.
an adab
We
nama.
are just like that. My thanks to all three of you for coming to studio. My thanks also to my other guests for joining me. And if you have been, thanks for watching. From my side, goodbye, good night. But next, Rajdeep Sardesai and the news.